Welcome viewers to the Personal Injury Law Show. My name's Tony Carbone. I'm a personal injury lawyer of over 25 years experience. With me tonight I've got Don Maffia, a partner in the law firm. Good evening, Don.
Good evening, Tony. Good evening, viewers.
And an associate in a law firm that does superannuation law, Sarah Snowden. Good evening, Sarah.
Good evening, Tony. How are you?
Good, thanks.
Now, Tony, we're talking about superannuation today, but what's in the news?
That is right, Don. Tonight we've got Sarah, who's an expert in superannuation law, so we'll go into that in a second segment. But in the news, Don, we've got the first story, something close to my heart. Shatterproof solution to glassings. At the Angler's Tavern, a fellow that was there for his engagement, there was a bit of an altercation between him and another fellow. Some guy bumped into his mother, turns around, says a few words and slashes him, cracks the glass in his face. 27 stitches, blah, blah, blah. Sarah, what's your take on this?
It's a bit worrying, Tony, that you go out for an evening out and this sort of thing can happen. It's been a constant issue in the news for quite a while, that people are, especially in those bigger venues where people have a little bit too much to drink, they're open quite late, and then this sort of thing can happen.
Don, there was 2 people slashed in this incident. I'm just astounded that after all these years, all the incidents we've had at the big nightclubs like in King Street and that we just can't use plastic or shatterproof glasses.
Doesn't make sense, Tony. I mean, there's been years and years of this going on. You would think the cheapest alternative to this glass would be plastic, and they still don't use it. So, look, I'm astounded by it. Don't understand why all these venues have those glass shatterproof in their venues. So, Tony,
and it'd be a lot cheaper too, wouldn't it, Sarah? Because you wouldn't have all these broken glasses and things like that.
You would think so, Tony. I think one of the things that is always brought up in this instance is the taste. A lot of people say that it doesn't taste as good, or the drinks don't taste as good out of plastic. In those sort of venues where people are drinking high volumes of alcohol, I don't know whether they would know the difference by that time of the night.
Now, Tony, what is his legal rights? I mean, he's been assaulted.
Because there's an assault, you don't need that 5% threshold which you've got under the Wrongs Act. And also, if you do need it to sue the actual occupier, the people that run the premises, I would have thought he would have got 10% psych anyway. He's left with some significant scarring.
But then, Tony, wouldn't there be an issue with if you're looking at the occupier, the venue owners, whether or not they're responsible for a third-party action, which is a criminal action that's happened on their premises? But
Sarah, you've got to look at things like security, whether security was appropriate. You've got to look at the history of the venue. There's a lot of issues. You know, whether there's been a breach of the liquor licensing, what the liquor licence actually says. You've got to get all those documentation. Look, the people that were assaulted in this case should seek legal advice, because I think they've got pretty good claims. That's my view. We'll keep moving, and we'll probably come back to this story another time. Royal Children's Hospital agrees to compensate a girl's family. This is a very tragic story, Sarah.
It is, Tony. Unfortunately, it's another instance, and this has happened in the past as well, where a family's taken their child into the hospital when they're not feeling well and they're not sure what's wrong. The hospital, at the moment, they're quite understaffed. I don't think that's an excuse for what has happened here at all. However, the child's been sent home, then been taken back, and as a result has been diagnosed with meningococcal. It went septic, and therefore the child in this case lost both her feet, a hand, and numerous digits off the other hand.
Don, very tragic case, and a very brave young girl. I guess she was very young, 8 or 9 months when it first happened. Yeah, sure. So I saw her on TV the other night, you know, putting on the prosthetic limbs and things like that. It's just amazing how courageous she is.
Very sad. And I think that before she was sent home, the mother did actually say, "Are you sure it's not meningococcal?" And the
she was a nurse.
Doctor, and then said, "No, it's not." So sent her home. So very tragic circumstances. I'm a bit shocked too. The Royal Children's Hospital. This case ran for I think a week, Tony, or something thereabouts.
About a week.
So it's gone through the whole litigation process and only resolved not at the door of the court during the court process. So, look, I'm not sure about why the Royal Children took it so far and then just said, "Well, here you go," and settled for something that we don't know. But
I guess the issue would have been liability. They were contesting the question of whether they were at fault. You know, sending the parents home initially, but I would have thought the young girl would have got the sympathy of the court.
What's come out in the newspapers? There's a lot of expert evidence that was used, because the law is that what is the usual practice in that area, and it sounded like, well, in those circumstances you wouldn't send the child home. She had high fever, you're sending her home. And I think the other thing, Two was that the daughter was given, the parents gave her like Panadol and Nurofen, which would reduce the temperature, and I've done that with my kids, to reduce the temperature, but still doesn't get to the bottom of what's causing it.
Well, in fact, an associate professor in infectious diseases gave evidence to say that she should have been admitted to the hospital for observation and given antibiotics when she first arrived. So, I mean, that's pretty compelling and damning evidence against the hospital, isn't it, Sarah?
I would have thought so. And in this case, Tony, it seemed from the article that a simple blood test may have picked this up quite early.
That's possible too. Yeah. Also, viewers, this is a case that would have settled for quite a few dollars because there was a future cost of care. She'd probably need prosthetic limbs into the future as she grows. She'd have other needs, wouldn't she, Sarah? Don?
I think there was estimated for like physiotherapy was over $500,000 just for that child. So that's a lifetime of care.
Confidentiality to the settlement, but I would have thought it would have been into the millions of dollars. That's my view.
Well, as you know, Tony, with these type of claims of infants, the claim has to be approved, or the compromise has to be approved by the judge, and the judge, Justice Beach, had no problems in approving that settlement. So we assume that it was a large sum.
I reckon it was. There's an interesting case where a fellow's gone in to eat in a prominent Mornington restaurant, and as he ate his pizza, a 3 centimetre piece of wire lodged in his throat. Sarah, what can you tell us about that?
I guess it wasn't the softest crust in Melbourne at that restaurant. But look, I would certainly be quite surprised if I went into a restaurant and had that happen. In this case, the restaurant admitted fault straight away. They were quite apologetic about the whole thing. But look, it's just something that restaurants need to be aware of, and patrons need to be aware of too when they go into those restaurants, that these little things can happen and they can cause significant injuries.
Exactly. And Don, the pizza shop proprietor wanted to pass the blame on to the people that provided the brush, which was used to clean the...
That's it. They found out where this bristle or piece of wire came from, and it came from a wire brush that they used to clean, I think, one of their pizza ovens. And so, yes, they settled the claim with the patron, but now they're pursuing the claim against the manufacturer for the recovery of the damages. And fair enough, Tony. I mean, if it's foreseeable that you're using these type of instruments in a restaurant, it should be safe as well. So the liability is not only on the pizza provider, but also on the manufacturer as well. So responsibility. So look, good luck to them, and I think the pizza shop did the right thing. Just paid up straight away, didn't take it on any further, and we'll see what happens with the manufacturer.
And sadly, a lot of these proprietors, this is for people that run food shops and stands and things like that, there's a shame file. So the Department of Health has got a shame file. If you have an instance where you're fined, you end up on that register. So you'd want to be pretty careful and make sure you run a very hygienic and safe environment. You know, I think that's important. Yeah. What about this lady that's gone in to have manipulation of her back, and one of her breast implants was actually dislodged, Sarah? Yeah,
during the course of a chiropractic treatment, while she was on her back, the chiropractor has pressed down and has dislodged the breast implant. Questions that would be asked in this case is whether or not a full, complete medical history was taken about prior surgeries. It's certainly something a chiropractor should be aware of, particularly when someone is lying on their stomach with that sort of implant.
Don, he must have been using a lot of force.
Well, I think so. I'm not sure I'll be going to that chiropractor, but to dislodge it. But look, again, Tony, I think what Sarah said, it's got to be a full disclosure of the history. I think the chiropractor didn't ask the right questions and she didn't give the right answer, whatever. But as it works out, she's dislodged her breast and it's caused, funny enough, a lot of psychological injury. It's not the physical, it's the psychological effect that it's had on her.
Well, she got over $51,000. So.
She did.
Anyway, we've got to go to a sponsors break, so viewers, please stay tuned. After the break, we're going to be talking about superannuation, your rights, and how to lodge a claim. Thank you.